Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
No, there are not.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. Approval of last month's minutes. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as printed. We have limited public comments. No limited public comments? Construction code, you're up.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We submitted an application for a grant for $50,000 to perform a update on our zoning ordinance. There's kind of a rolling thing, so that there's not an end date, so I don't know when we will know if we are going to receive that grant. The State of Michigan Construction Code Commission approved Windsor Township's request to take over permitting and inspecting. As of right now, they will take over January 1, 2025. The contractor breakfast was a great success. We had over 100 contractors there. A lot of good conversation with all of us, with the contractors. I'm planning on starting to do it once a year. I want to thank Hidden Creek Farms for donating the use of the building. Other than that, I don't have anything else to discuss unless you guys have some questions for me.
Yes, Brian.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Brian.
The contractor's breakfast, you want to do that every year. What was the outcome of that breakfast? You just gathered information, or what took place?
Yeah, it's an opportunity for us to, talk to the contractors about changes that we've made or are planning on making in my office. It's also a great opportunity for them to come one-on-one and speak with us, ask us questions. We talked about their concerns with BSNA, their things they like about it as far as the online permitting. So it's just a great way for us, because we don't always get to see them out in the field. A lot of times when we go to job sites, they're done and gone and they're not around. So it's a great opportunity for all of us inspectors to just sit down and have a conversation with everybody. And the big topic, I will tell you, was Windsor Township. A lot of them wanted to know why the township was doing that. And, each township and village and, excuse me, and city have that right to do their own permitting and inspecting, so.
Do you think this was substantially better than the last one you had?
I would say they were probably about the same size. The difference in this one was I invited all of the trade contractors, plumbing, mechanical, and electric. In the first one, it was just building contractors. And I think after doing it with all of them, that's the way I would like to continue to do it. Because it also gives the contractors themselves an opportunity to communicate with the trades.
Okay. So it didn't become a big vent fest and...
Yeah, I would tell you, yeah, I was not disappointed at all. In fact, I was a little bit surprised that we had doing it year after year, 2 years in a row, I guess. I didn't think we'd have the turnout that we had, but we had a great turnout.
Good.
So I was happy.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also gonna try in the future and see if maybe Delta, some of the surrounding jurisdictions, their inspectors would like to come and join us.
Follow-up to that, do you think this will ever become a venue where contractors and residents of the county can address undeveloped areas of Eaton County and try to get business pushed into other areas?
Yeah, it could. I mean, we can expand it. I know Brandy and I talked a couple weeks ago, and we would like to do that, something similar to what we're doing with the zoning and get all the townships and cities and villages, that even the ones we don't do the zoning for, but get them all in a room and have the conversations with them and the assessors and I think that'd be another good opportunity for communication between all of us. Hey, why do you do this way? And, you know, try and make it more, all of us kind of on the same page as much as we can.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to comment, I think that's a really good idea because the more you know the people that that you may be working with, the better it is. It's much easier to talk to someone you know than a stranger.
Yep. And I laugh a little bit because I have talked to some of the other inspecting jurisdictions and they think I'm crazy for doing it. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter if people come up and they're upset or how do I fix something if I don't know something's wrong? That's the way I look at it.
Yes.
Brian's questions brought one to my mind. In your discussions with them and their discussions with each other, did you get some sense of what kind of, if any, development we're going to be looking at in the next year? Is it in housing?
No, there's a big, housing development going on in Potterville right now that Alan Edwin's doing. In fact, I believe they just bought some more land over there. But other than that, I don't see any, there's been rumors of some industrial, commercial, I should say industrial development here around Charlotte, but you know how rumors are.
We get any sense of the likely availability of any new housing? I mean, Michigan has talked about a housing shortage. We've talked about housing shortages across the country. Do we get some sense of where that might be going at this point in terms of development?
Not right now. I can tell you our new housing for the county this year is down from last year significantly. And a lot of that has to do with cost.
You know what the median cost is? Do you have a guess to that?
I don't. I could go back and look and let you know.
I think the last time I read anything, the median cost was somewhere in the neighborhood of $240,000, $250,000.
Yeah, and I would tell you it's,
Well, that was a contractor's statement, so I'm not exactly sure how the sense I got from him, he said it was his price point, and so I thought that meant that was what he had into it without really getting into how much the profit he was looking for.
and I would tell you just off the top of my head, it's probably 100,000 more than that today. And a lot of the houses we're seeing built right now are the square footage is, 700 feet, 800 feet, square feet. In fact, I was out to one the other day and the homeowner was there and he said, well, this is all we could afford to build. But I'm building it, planning on being able to put an addition or two on in the future.
All right. Thank you.
They're not a problem. I always, when somebody comes to me and says they want to build a barn dominium, I always ask them, have you ever considered building a slab-on-grade home? Instead of burying wood in the ground. And I give them the example of my old pole barn was built in the late 60s. And in 2013, I tore it down because all the posts were rotted and built a new one. So do you want to live in a home with wood in the ground? When wood touches soil, it rots. So, and we've got 3 right now in the county that are slab on grade. And all that is a concrete slab that they've poured with footings. They build it out of 2x6 walls. When you drive by it, you're gonna think it's a pole barn, because that's the way it looks on the outside. It is in my mind. We've got a couple of contractors that will pour concrete pillars and put the wood on top of that, so the wood's not in the ground. And that's okay too. But the contractors that I've been talking to about it, the slab on grade is even a cheaper way to go than a pole barn. The cost is lower.
In reference to Commissioner Brailer's question about housing, if we're awarded the Housing Readiness Grant, part of that grant is encouraging us or assisting us with actions that would help us to increase our housing supply and the affordability of housing. So that may be a good opportunity to try and bring some developers in or contractors in to have those discussions if we're awarded that grant.
I think the only way we're ever going to solve the housing situation in this country is all of the above, and that go back to subsidized housing, go back to, private homes and apartments and condos and everything. I mean, the idea that we're going to solve it by building single-family dwellings across the country when most of them are, if not all of them, are in six figures now, people just simply can't afford it, isn't going to solve the problem. So I think you're looking at subsidized housing of some sort would have to be a part of that.
And then that housing readiness grant does have an action item of a resolution in the packet for that grant.
So you're asking me to vote for it?
I just don't want to get past it and forget.
You're talking about our resolution.
Yes.
I got my finger on it.
Okay.
I'm waiting for a motion.
I'd move it.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Anything else for us, sir?
No, I don't have anything else.
The financial reports for all the departments are in the packet. They have not changed since last month, so they are last month's reports, just so you know, but they are in there.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, you're welcome. Okay, we have resource recycling.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We have a short, quick report today, and then at the end, we do have appointments for our Materials Management Planning Committee, which I'll discuss a little bit at the end. General updates with the new fiscal year. The department's been doing a lot of analysis of all of our expenses, and in light of the November 5th vote. And in respect to the county projects or programs, which are our recycling events, we do 3 every year. Our RFPs came back, and we also made the effort to go out and seek additional RFPs because a lot of our vendor costs are increasing. And we're doing our best to shop around and find the best vendors for household hazardous waste and for our electronics recycling for our events. Also in the RFPs, we also have battery RFPs out, and we are able to solicit several proposals for that. And we are doing our analyses, and our current vendor, who Service Solutions, is no longer working with contracts, and that has concerns for the department, so we are seeking possibly a new vendor for our battery recycling programs. The department is confident that next month we'll have recommendations for the RFPs for our events and for our batteries, and hopefully we'll be able to get the best deals we possibly can. Our local projects are our SWAG program for our recycling centers. We did receive all of our applications from our recycling centers, and we are looking at a lot of increased cost for our recycling centers too, specifically with vendors. And we've spent the last month meeting with recycling centers and vendors and trying to negotiate and determine ways we can reduce overall costs for the SWAG program to make it more viable and sustainable. Also with the SWAG program, we're looking at a transition away from it as we develop the materials management plan and the hub and spoke model. Some options that we're considering is utilizing the recycling trailers for at least one of our SWAG centers. And next month, after we're through discussing and working with our SWAG applicants, we'll be bringing recommendations to the board for the SWAG program. It's a lot of work, looking at taking over some of these centers. And the mobile recycling program, or the Eagle Infrastructure Grant, we just completed reporting on it, and the trailer is working out very well for us. Vermontville is very successful. We're still in talks with Eaton Rapids. With the election, there was about a month or so, it was difficult to engage with a lot of officials around the county, so we're looking forward to this month getting the program started, and hopefully next month in Eaton Rapids, we'll be doing the second Thursday of the month in Eaton Rapids. And additionally, next year, we're looking at somewhere in Windsor Township, Diamonddale area for the recycling trailer, or the mobile recycling program. And we'll be contacting officials from those locations. With the hub and spoke development, we're continuing to work with Calhoun County. And what this pilot is really looking at is if we're looking at increased volumes of materials, does the county, and specifically Sunfield Recycling Center, have the capacity, meaning the infrastructure and personnel, to process all of these materials? And the ideal is the more materials that the county can bring in under its own operations, the more we'll be able to sell and produce revenue from the sale of materials. So we're looking at ways we can develop Sunfield and make some investments to make it more efficient, looking at different types of balers and building out that capacity. So when we do look at taking over some of our other recycling centers with the materials management plan, we'll be able to have that capacity to process all of these materials coming in and making them available to sale to manufacturers. So in Calhoun County is, in our analysis, we're continuing to run a net positive with that relationship in terms of revenue. And finally, our materials management plan. All of our applications have been received, and included in your packet are our recommendations and the applications from the people who applied. And the first MMPC meeting will be held in December. And in that meeting, we're going to be electing officers, passing bylaws, and we're going to do an overview of the Eaton County Department operations and what we've been doing and how the county's been approaching this, and an overview of Eagle's materials management plan. And we'll be convening in December, and hopefully be meeting monthly after that as we move forward with the materials management plan. And would you like me to go over any of the recommendations or appointments at this time? I can come back up later when the appointments are being made.
Let's do that.
Okay. Have them come up later?
Yes.
Okay.
please.
There's no, yes, Brian?
Of all of our recycling in the county, you talked about vendors and sales and stuff. Is this at all profitable?
At one time, it was profitable, and since China's been out of the market, the industry's really been trying to find where it sits in terms of private and public sector. I believe right now it's not necessarily profitable to be in recycling right now. There are certain aspects of recycling, cardboard. You can I've seen numbers where people can make net profits on cardboard pretty easily, but as far as plastics and some of the other materials, it's much more difficult to generate enough revenue to make a profit. And if there were more profits in it, I think we'd see a lot more private sector activity in recycling. Maybe about 10 years ago, we saw a lot more private sector involvement, and since then, we've seen less and less. And currently, there is proposals across the country, California, and even in Michigan. They're called producer responsibility laws, where we're looking at holding manufacturers accountable for the proper disposal of materials that they're producing in their factories. So hopefully, we're looking at a future system where taxpayers aren't responsible for managing the waste created by some of these companies, but the companies themselves will be able to, we'll look at subsidizing or in some way helping with the processing and management of these materials that are really difficult to recycle or manage in the long run.
So what would we have to do as a county to at least break even on this?
As a county, we would, we're looking at efficiencies and working with communities. So one option with our hub and spoke and other counties are going into this direction too. We're looking at source separating materials. And so as a manufacturer, as a purchaser of used water bottles, you're looking at, you want the highest quality materials with the least amount of contamination. So as a department, we're looking at how can we get the highest quality materials so we can command the highest prices for our materials. And with our recycling trailer and our recycling centers, we really focus on source separating, which just means separating number ones, twos, fives, and separating the metals. And if we can work with the community and source separate a lot of these materials, we're gonna be able to be much more efficient in our operations and have much higher quality products. The other option with recycling is working with material recovery facilities, or MRFs, they call them in the industry. And so Grand Ledge, Delta Township, Eaton Rapids, Charlotte, anywhere where there's curbside pickup, you put all of your recycling materials into a bin, and after they get put into a bin, they have to be sorted. And what a lot of companies have realized is that labor costs are far too high. There are technologies with lasers and artificial intelligence now and computer algorithms where they can, to a very accurate and good degree, sort materials, but you still need the human element to sort through. Mterra over in the Lansing area would be an example of a MRF. And typically, if you do single source where you put everything in, we'd have to pay Mterra to sort the recycling, and then they would be able to sell the materials for revenue. So, so the direction the county is going in, we're looking at the very least breaking even and looking at how we can manage these materials to where we're not losing any money on them. And so the single source, and again, taking them to Mterra or MRF to get sorted, I don't see how the county would be able to operate in a system like that. So the route we're going and the route a lot of other counties are going in, I do see the most promise for breaking even and hopefully making some money and not costing.
I won't ask you to predict that date that we're breaking even, but I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yep.
Joe?
Well, thank you. I wanted to point out that when this department was made here, one of the things that we talked about was the fact that the only way really ultimately that this would be a at least a break-even proposition, let alone a for-profit proposition, is if capitalism, the bright people in their garages and their basements and in their factories and their warehouses and the scientists would figure out how to use these things for a profit. And back in the 90s, I remember reading about there was some use of old tires in highway construction. That largely has disappeared. And capitalism didn't seize on this, and there's nobody out there that looks like they're looking at how to take these materials and make them profitable. And that's partly because the country, in my view, the country as a whole, hasn't taken this seriously, and it's much easier to make a profit to continue to extract oil and coal and natural gas from the ground and to continue business as usual and pile up the plastics and ignore it. So until, as a society, as a country, as a community, we decide to get serious about this, it's never going to be profitable. And rarely will it be break even. So, but, you know, I'm old, so when the tipping point comes in terms of climate change, which is barreling down upon us, when that happens, I probably won't be around, but a lot of you are going to be still around, and there's going to be hell to pay because we frankly ignored this problem the first Earth Day was, I think, in 1972. So you're talking a half a century of basically ignoring what we all, in our heart of hearts, know is true, is we're barreling down towards a catastrophe. And I'm talking today because Connie said she likes to hear me talk, so.
It's true.
Any others?
Hey, one last shot.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Anything else for your report?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Parks.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right, so quick update on what we've been up to. Beginning this month on November 2nd, we had our first Pumpkin Chuck event, which in our mind was a major success. We probably had close to 400 to 500 participants come. And I want to give a big thank you to the Morgan Farm outside of Eaton Rapids. He generously donated as many pumpkins as we could get a hold of. So I think we ended up hauling about close to like 1,500, 2,000 pumpkins off his lot on November 1st. Actually, they're now at Hammond Farms in their compost pile. So that was another agreement. Great thanks to Hammond Farms for agreeing to be a part of it and taking all the waste from the smashed pumpkins that were all over. So we already have people very excited, looking forward to next year. So plans have already been discussed about how to expand that program. And right now, we are currently planning for 2 holiday parades that we have coming up. We have on November 30th, the parade in Charlotte, and on December 6th, the parade in Grand Ledge. So we're just taking part in that as being a float, advertising the park system. And so we're getting kind of creative how to design one of our trailers. Other things are going on. In December, a couple of our staff members will be taking an exam with the National Pesticide Application so we can be certified and do applications for weed control and help with our control and extraction of invasive species throughout our park system. And part of us going forth with this certification is kind of our mission of our partnership with the Natural Capital Forestry Department in our efforts to reestablish a strong forest ecosystem throughout our park system. So it kind of aligns with their mission of helping us develop the new understories in some of our parks and us being able to help control our invasive species and weed controls. Other than that, I'm going to now open the floor to my staff to kind of talk about programs and maintenance updates for us, and then I'll come back to wrap it up.
Morning, everyone. Okay, so maintenance updates. We have one seasonal remaining, and then the Fitzgerald Nature Center demo. We have a hazardous materials survey that is scheduled, and that's gonna be roughly $1,000. Then the Lincoln Brick Interpretive Center renovation. So Lansing Exteriors came and installed an emergency exit on the Nature Center side, as well as 2 windows. And then later this month, we're planning on painting the interior, fixing the drywall, et cetera. We also had Capital Masonry come out to Lincoln Brick and restore the damage that was caused from the storm to the ruins. So that is all done. And then the former LB house lot. We've taken a lot of gravel and created a parking lot, or a rough outline of a parking lot from where the house was. And we've also put a bunch of boulders around to outline that. So, and since we've done that, we have seen some people already parking there at the other trailhead. The Keeney Boardwalk demolition is planned for this winter. And then, like Alex said, we are working with Natural Capital Forestry to kind of set up a long-term plan for the management of our forests, but is also to harvest some of the timber that was felled when we had that storm, not this past August, but the August before. Other than that, that's pretty much it for maintenance. I'm gonna hand it over to Clara.
Okay, hooty hoot, everybody. Good morning. We have several upcoming programs for the winter that we have partnered with Grand Ledge Library. We have Adapting to Darkness, which is an owl hunt. So everyone's going to get like a red light on their head, and then Ethan here is going to guide us through a nature hike at night. And then we have Campfire Night, which is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to have a campfire at Lincoln Brick, and Grand Ledge Library is going to read a story to some kiddos, and then we're gonna have s'mores and a craft and everything. Super fun. Like Alex already touched on, we are having floats in the Charlotte Parade as well as the Grand Ledge Holiday Parade. And then in March, I know it's very far away, but in March we have a propagation party coming on. So if we have any houseplant parents in the room, please come and bring your houseplant, and you can get several free plants to take home with. And then for my last thing for my report is going to be a hands-on activity, okay? So if everyone could please take out their phone, if you have Facebook or Instagram, please take out your phone. I don't see anyone, this goes for everybody in the back of me. Please take out your phone and like our Facebook page for Eaton County Parks. It really does help a lot for engagement and getting out the word for any of our programs or upcoming events, anything that we have at the park of updates. If you could please like or share any of our posts, it would be super fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and obviously as we're into the, getting close to the winter months, parks are kind of slowing down a little bit, doing a lot of planning. And part of that, or my last little bit here, is an update on our strategic plan update for our 4 major parks. Next week on the 19th, we will be meeting with the Williams & Works company again via Zoom to kind of go over the design concepts for Lincoln Brick. We did that last month. I apologize. But during that meeting, we went over Fitzgerald Park, and the city of Grand Ledge obviously tuned into that one, and we had a lot of comments, feedback, back and forth, and we decided that we needed to continue this process. So on November 20th, we will be meeting with the city of Grand Ledge one-on-one to kind of talk about their perspectives and opinions on the design concept before going back to Williams & Works with that feedback to possibly do a potential redesign of the final efforts of the strategic plan. So, but after those 2 plans are done, we will then be able to go to the next steps of formulating one final PDF document to then use for our proposals for construction. So other than that, that's all we have from Parks today.
We do have a quick Parks meeting after this meeting. We have the new printout with all the updates of the Fitzgerald Park from the last time Williams & Works was here. It shouldn't take us too long to look at that real quick. I'm looking over here because Brian and Brian are the only ones here that are on that committee, so. We also have a request from Delta Township for an extension on their grant per the grant agreement. That's something that staff can approve, but we usually run that by this group like we did with Grand Ledge. It's a project that they're working on with the road commission. The road commission is not done yet, so it's kind of delayed their project a little bit. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to give them an extension for that. So unless anybody has any objections, we'll get a hold of them and formally approve that extension for them. Thank you.
Or any,
The lease agreement.
Oh,
Fitzgerald.
sorry. Alex sat down too fast. The lease agreement for Fitzgerald Park is in the packet. There's a, just a real brief resolution. The lease has areas that are highlighted, which are a little different. The city of Grand Ledge preferred that the lease agreement align with the millage. So that is why the changes to the renewal timeframe. So the new language they are proposing is that the existing lease agreement between everybody, I won't go through the specifics of that, be continued for 7 years, terminating on the December 31st of 2032. And then if certain conditions are met in the lease, which are described in paragraph 3, it could be extended for another 10 years, as long as those requirements are met. So the requirements in paragraph 3 are financial investments in the park. As consideration for the lease renewal and addendum during the term, the leasee must allocate a portion of its budget toward the maintenance and improvement of Fitzgerald Park, and the county shall make adequate investments beyond that of normal park maintenance. Now that we have the parks millage and we have these strategic plans, we don't assume that that will be an issue, that we will be making investments as we already have. We've done several safety things. We are looking at doing some more with the park per the strategic plan, so that shouldn't be an issue to invest upon maintenance. The staircase, that's what I was gonna say. We're already looking at replacing that staircase, which is a major investment. So there's that language in there. We also, this was something that we had talked about together, so this isn't necessarily a Grand Ledge suggestion, an advisory committee between the city of Grand Ledge and the county that would be staff or elected officials to sit on to talk about the park. And then the 5th one is just kind of cleanup. It's the waiver of fees. We don't charge fees for the park anymore, so this is just updating the agreement for the waiver of the fees for residents to enter the park. Are there any questions?
Brian,
Given that, I mean, I looked at this map that was given to us with this resolution, and it's not the complete park. Is that correct?
Alex, do you want to talk about that? Because you had several questions about that when we talked with the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in discussions with the city, we kind of describe or explain to them on the several parcels that make up the area that we do hold activities throughout the park. The 2 main parcels are the ones leading up to, back to the wastewater treatment plant, and I don't have the map with me right now, so I apologize, but
It's on the screen.
it's on the screen right here next to me. Okay. So the 2 parcels that are identified in the lease agreement, we propose expanding it to add the parcel including Little Fitz and also the parcel that does have, I believe, one of the wastewater plants, like extra storage units, to the west side of the park when you're driving in. However, the parcel on the west side is under control of the wastewater department. So the city of Grand Ledge said that we cannot, even though we have trails and disc golf holes throughout that parcel, they have given us verbal permission to do any improvements that are needed, but we can't include that in on the lease because it's under control of the wastewater department. And with the Little Fitz parcel towards the front of the park, they have future plans with their own city budget to make improvements with that park. So since they're already planning on doing those improvements, they decided that they would keep that as well. But we will work in conjunction with the maintenance issues that we have seen with certain runoff areas that affect our parcel that goes along the Ledges Trail. So that's why the parcels are staying the same, just with the original 2 from the document. So the picture that they show on the first initial outline of the lease agreement is this one right here coming up on your screen, is a portion of the main parcel that does expand further to the wastewater treatment. And it just, I think it's just back in the day when they made this, they only highlighted this section, although we do have access to the full parcel.
Right, it doesn't show the north, it doesn't show the part that's all north of this.
Correct, the one that goes up to like where the dam is, yeah.
There's also a section that goes all the way to the railroad trestle.
Yep,
So
so,
the map itself is not up to date.
correct. But the verbiage when it comes to the property descriptions, that is accurate to highlight the whole northern parcel of the section you're seeing now on the screen, plus the eastern portion that is pretty much the Ledges Trail along the river. So it is covered in the verbiage.
So the description covers the whole park, but the picture does not.
Correct. The picture is very outdated, at least that one that we're looking at the screen.
Yeah, that's
So yeah,
what I,
the legal description of our agreement is accurate.
That is the one that Grand Ledge prefers to be in the packet. We suggested a different map, and this is the map that
Yeah.
they wanted in the packet, in with the lease. It all comes down to the wastewater treatment plant. They can't give us permission to be on that property on paper. Verbally, they give us permission, we can operate there, they don't have a problem with it. The parcel that you see on this map is the one that includes all the buildings, all the parkings, all of those things. The only thing that is not on this map is property that has trails on it.
Correct.
I have a problem with operating under a verbal agreement. I mean, if this description covers the entire park, why isn't that under our lease so that we're not operating on a verbal agreement? I don't get that. I think there's something funny going on here. And the other thing I don't like is this item 3, is consideration for this lease renewal and addendum. During the term, leasing must allocate a portion of its budget toward the maintenance and improvement of Fitzgerald Park. That's our determination. We don't need to be dictated to as to how much we're going to spend or what portion. I mean, the reality is we don't own this park. We're only leasing it.
That's correct.
And I have a problem with investing money in something where it's open-ended because we don't know yet what's going to happen at the completion of this water treatment facility. And to invest money in that footprint, only to have somebody come along and say, well, yeah, you can't do it here, but because we're on a verbal agreement, we're going to go ahead and do this. I think we need to table this till January, come back and revisit this. And maybe the city of Grand Ledge will have more information for us as to what's going to happen in the future.
This was part of the discussion that we had with the city of Grand Ledge. So this was in discussion in our Parks Work Group, having a separate meeting with the city of Grand Ledge. They were planning on taking this to their council as well. As far as the investments, it says allocate a portion, must allocate a portion. It doesn't say a specific dollar amount, and it was vague for the reason that we don't know what this board will allocate. But it does say exactly what we've been doing for the term that we've had of this lease for years, decades, that we will make investments, that we will do maintenance, and that's really what it's about. The 7-year portion that you're looking at, they want to go 7 years. Again, that's the portion for the millage that we have and the voters passed, their residents as well. So they want to consider what we do in number 3, what financial investments we make. And if they're satisfied with that, or if that millage was somehow renewed at that point, that they would then say, we want to continue that partnership. So they're taking us through that 7 years to allow us to see what we can do for their park. And we've agreed, again, by forming a group with them, that we'll work with them to make investments, knowing that everything that is done has to be approved by this body. So I don't have a concern with that. In meeting with the council, Adam Smith does not have a concern with that, their city manager. I think we plan and want to work together. We've had a great relationship with the city of Grand Ledge, but I don't believe that ties our hands at all. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to that. Oh, Joe had a question.
Well, we got to them, but okay. You're first.
I'm first. I enjoy being first, thank you. I looked at this last night, and I remember when the discussion about the fees was first brought up. My recollection of this is that the city of Grand Ledge doesn't have the financial wherewithal to do very much with this park. And in reading these addendums, it just sounds like they basically want the ability to run the park the way they want it run, and we're their means to do that. This reads to me as if they're doing us a favor. And I don't think we're doing them a favor at all. I read this, I was somewhat offended by some of this. The part about, we must allocate funds for investment and maintenance. We've done that throughout the time that we've had Fitzgerald Park. We didn't need something to order us to do that. But what concerns me is, in part, is just what the controller just said in terms of there's not a dollar amount here, is I don't know how high their ceiling is going to be. If we invest, I'll pick a figure, $100,000 to improve a trail, there's nothing that prevents them from coming and saying, well, you should have spent more. And there was a trail over here you didn't do anything with. This advisory committee, all right, that's great. I certainly am in favor of communication. But when you put a committee like that together, it suggests to me that there's a organization, this committee, that is going to at least weigh in on the what is done at the park, when it's done, how it's done. I mean, if the advisory committee is opposed to that $100,000 for the improvement of that trail, does that mean that the improvement doesn't go forward? And frankly, again, as I recall, I was in favor of continuing fees out there. And for political purposes, the political people in Grand Ledge wanted to be able to tell their constituents, look what we did. We did away with fees for you to go to the park. And we bowed to that. And that still rankles to a certain extent. So I looked at this, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't gonna raise anything, but since it's the subject is now out here, if Grand Ledge wants Fitzgerald Park back, I'm more than happy to let them have it. And I don't know why we should be on probation or super secret probation for 7 years, and if we pass muster, then we're allowed another 10 years. But that's,
Just to clarify, that's obviously not what I meant by that. They're obviously, in 7 years, their financial situation can change. And at that point, maybe they would want to take it on. But if this partnership, just like we've had for years, continues, I think they just wanted to solidify that, but they're not telling us what we need to spend. And Alex, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I do know that Commissioner Mulder had a...
well, I was a lawyer at one time in my life, and I read these things from that standpoint. And I see a lot of let's say, gray here that would allow them a lot more influence on what goes forward than what I think is appropriate, given all that we've put into this park in the time I've been here and the plans that we have in regards to this park. So.
Well, I have a lot of opinions about it. I'm not concerned about the lease portion. Frankly, I lease a lot of properties, and I put money into them, even though I don't own the property. That's typical. When you lease a property, you act as an owner and you invest. I'm not happy with this number 4, the advisory committee. I mean, that sets aside one group from the rest of our parks. We already have a committee that determines what we're gonna do with our parks, where we're gonna spend the money, how we're gonna do it. Now we had this other little subcommittee here that says that the leaseor shall recommend to the leasee what they want done. Now, wait a second, you know? We're the one, we're leasing the park, it's ours, our determinations. They may recommend, I suppose. I'm not even sure why it's in here. I know why it's in here. It's political. People on the Grand Ledge Council feel that they want to have some kind of say in what goes on in that park. And so they've got this nebulous, strange little sentence in here that frankly, a lawyer would look at and say it's silly and it doesn't make any sense. But it's here, and it's a political statement is what it is, that Grand Ledge wants to have their fingers in what goes on in the park. And frankly, it's not appropriate. I don't want to sink the whole thing. Everybody's been looking for some kind of a contract and a lease. We've been talking about it for a year and a half, and it's been on hold because of the water treatment plant, which has now been determined. We know where it's going to go. So I just don't like that number 4, that little committee, because it creates conflict, it creates confusion. We already have determination of how we're gonna spend our monies, what the projects are, what the focus is. We have a master plan or coming into fruition here that'll include these things. To have some other group that's in there trying to essentially make some kind of comment, I don't see the purpose of it. So I'm kind of opposed to that advisory. I don't have a problem with communication. We need to communicate with our neighbors and our friends in Grand Ledge. They actually use the park heavily. It's on the edge of their city, and residents there use it. I don't know what the census is, but I would guess that Grand Ledge residents are at least half, if not 3/4 of the usage there. So,
Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, the whole purpose, it's my understanding of the advisory committee, is simply to open lines of communication. There has not been good communication with the city about the park and what's going on and where the waste management treatment place is gonna go and the trails not being on leased property, things like that. So it was my understanding the purpose of the advisory committee was simply to open up lines of communication so everybody's on the same page with what's going on at the park.
Yeah, and that is exactly right. And from my perspective, and honestly from our Parks Department's perspective, you know, our millage is to serve county parks. We understand that Fitzgerald is leased, but we also understand that Fitzgerald is one of our most popular parks currently. So it is kind of a balancing act where we know that our funds need to go spread out, you know, accordingly in a strategic manner towards all of our parks. And we're not just gonna devote all our money into Fitzgerald just because the lease says, you know, the verbiage says like, oh, well, the advisory board gets to pick and choose, and as Joe mentioned, like, oh, well, if you guys don't spend enough, you guys are gonna lose it. I don't think that is the case. I think what they said in our discussions was as long as we make our adequate adjustments and improvements, because there's a lot of things in that park that are outdated. And the overall consensus from the city was that they do like what is coming on the strategic plan. They just want to make sure those things are progressively being put in. So yes, I agree with, like I said, the balancing act of we do need to spend money to improve that park in ways, but we also are not going to spend all of our money because the millage is for county parks. So we will adjust that accordingly and allocate those funds appropriately.
Brian?
Do we have a lease in place right now?
It has expired.
It's expired. My recommendation, and I said this on Parks Work Group, is that we just stop right now until the water treatment facility is completed, because we don't know how much of a disruption. I mean, granted, the footprint may not be that big, but we don't know how much of a disruption that's going to be until that's complete. And then take a step back in, and once that's complete and functional, and take a look at what that park can become. I mean, I don't like this idea that.
Breaking ground on that till spring, Brian.
Yeah, they'll look at
Pardon?
They aren't even looking at breaking ground until spring.
Okay,
We're
that's,
talking years,
Yeah.
yeah. And
years.
here we're talking about putting money into, I mean, we had this grandiose plan from Williams Works as to new driveways and parking lots and everything else, and I think it'd be silly to have two construction projects going there at the same time that might be at odds with each other. Let's just wait till the water treatment facility's done and then go back in and see what needs to be done after that. I mean, we're talking about a bridge across the river to Lincoln Brick. We don't even know if we're gonna have access to that when this water treatment facility's done. And we still don't know what's gonna happen with the Grand River because there's groups that wanna take all the dams out. So I think the park is operational right now. It's functioning. Let's let it ride till the water treatment facility's done. I don't think we need to pass another short-term lease.
And I said that is something that we could explore in our conversations with the city once we finalize our strategic plan and knowing that they're building the wastewater, saying and telling them, we will start, with the road pavement and stuff like that. But if there are things that are going to impede or possibly, kind of cluster up the fluidity of the park because of the wastewater development, then we could say like, hey, we can't do A, B, and C until wastewater is done, just so they know. So you're absolutely right. Like, we can plan it so that we don't interfere with each other and make it more of a cluster inside the park. But there are certain things we could probably get done with playground updates and stuff like that that will kind of align with their want of us to improve the park that doesn't impede the flow of people getting in and out of the park because of the construction of the wastewater. So in time, we can have those conversations and figure out, what their plan is. Kind of, we just know the location of where everything's going for the wastewater, but we don't know construction planning, other than what Claudine says, that what proposed shovels in the ground, April, May is what they've told us. So yeah, we can definitely wait it out and see for certain areas of improvement around the wastewater area that we don't collide with construction projects.
Yeah, well, we know from our last Parks Work Group meeting that the layout that we were handed wasn't even the correct map. And that's according to Adam there at Grand Ledge.
That was just the baseball portion.
Well,
Because they had one field missing, but that's what we're talking about next week, because I do have some questions about that as well with him.
all right, thank you.
Joe, you had your hand up.
I did. I guess, I don't know that you need to wait until the wastewater treatment plant is finished or any of those things necessarily. That type of a construction could take years to do. But, and again, I'll reference my prior, what I did for a living. This is a legal document. And this document is supposed to spell out the responsibilities of the two parties. And the whole point of looking at a document like this is to determine where there may be inadequacies or potential problems. And if you went to court, the most key word in documents like this is the word shall. The courts have consistently, for years and years, have indicated where that's in a statute or in any kind of a contract, shall means you do it. Must, will, those are words that would at least imply there's some obligation, but it's not set in stone and it can be worked out. In paragraph 3, the last sentence says the county shall make adequate investments into Fitzgerald Park beyond that of normal park maintenance. Nowhere in here do I see, and I'm, people don't like lawyers, but this is lawyer talking to you. I don't see anywhere in here a definition of what adequate means. And that's a problem. I reference what I said before about the trail. If there's a disagreement, all right, that says we make adequate investments beyond normal maintenance, doesn't define, it doesn't define what the word adequate means, and it doesn't determine who makes that decision. So you look at paragraph 4, because you would read the whole document as a whole, not as parts. You look at paragraph 4, and paragraph 4 says, down towards the bottom, there's a lot of shalls in here, but the one that I'm looking at, it says the leaseor, that's the city, shall provide recommendations to the leasee regarding any construction, demolition, relocation, and all other capital improvement activities.
I'm with you, Joe. That's exactly what the problem is.
Exactly. I mean, this document is poorly written. If you want this to be your contract for the next 7 years to how this park is going to be managed, you need to rewrite this. Because if, all right, the leaseor will have an obligation to provide recommendations, all right? Now, it doesn't say anything in here about what the leasee has to do with those recommendations. So you read paragraph 3, adequate investments. You read paragraph 4, the recommendations about whatever you do with it, construction, demolition, relocation, any other capital improvements.
That's pretty major stuff, isn't it?
It's the whole crux of the whole agreement, for
I
crying
mean,
out loud.
frankly, by the shall, we're saying that we will do what we're told. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna get to that point.
Well, that's
But
the
it's a
problem.
contract.
That's the problem, Blake. It doesn't say that. It says they make the it says we make the adequate investments. It says in paragraph 4, they make recommendations. Doesn't say anything in paragraph 4 about our response to those recommendations, but if you read the two things in conjunction, you could argue that, yes, if they say that we need to spend X for Y, that you put those two together and they could make an argument that, yes, we need to spend the money that they want us to spend.
And I agree with you, because I'm not a contract lawyer, but I've been involved in lots of contract disputes, and the word shall is critical for the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Now, if that had a different word that you might suggest, it'll take off the onus of the
If that
importance of that.
said, if that said will, it's an entirely different legal argument
Absolutely.
that allows them to make recommendations. And that's a perfect example of why I think this is an inadequate document. If that said they will make recommendations in regards to all those things, we're not obligated to do them. We're certainly entitled to speak with them and work something out. But, so.
Yes, Brian.
What's the time frame on this? So it's expired, I'm hearing.
Been expired.
It's been expired. So if we punt this back to them with these recommendations where nothing earth-shattering happens here. Okay, thank you.
Kind of in the process we've been doing, we did a little back and forth where we approached the city with our recommendations, they approached us with this,
Fair enough.
now we're here today.
Do these comments need to be pushed back in the form of a motion, or is it just a summary from our discussion enough?
We can go back with the summary from this discussion, and no action means that it's not going anywhere until it comes back here.
Fair enough.
So,
So we're just going to leave it? Okay, so we're on to our next item.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
And that's,
The artwork, by the way. Oh, thank you. It's beautiful.
that's committee appointments, right?
Oh, yeah.
Connie?
yes, Claudine was
That's what
gonna.
I show. So I'll just start at the top of the page there. For the Zoning Board of Appeals, these are 3-year terms. There are 3 appointments. One of them is for an alternate. That's the first one, Mark Stahl. Don Chase currently sits on that board. He's requested reappointment, and Rob Cook sits on that board and has requested reappointment. We do have an application from that last person, Joseph Gunther. That is a new applicant, and staff has not talked to him. That was one that was just sent in to the clerk's office. The Construction Code Board of Appeals, there are 8 appointments. There are 8 applicants. All of those are currently serving people who have requested reappointment. The Planning Commission, there is 1 appointment and 1 applicant, which is Ben Terrell. He has requested reappointment. He's a longtime serving member of the Planning Commission. The Eaton County Transportation Authority, the Northwest Quadrant specifically, Rob Piercefield currently serves in that capacity and has requested reappointment. The Purchase of Development Rights Selection Committee is a 2-year term with 4 appointments. Those are all currently serving members who have also requested reappointment. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority is a 3-year term. There are three appointments available for that. There are 2 requesting reappointment, and Brian Lotzenheiser has graciously allowed me to put his name on there as a potential new appointment on that committee.
Why have we vetted that Lotzenheiser guy?
I know. I know.
Okay, I don't know.
The last committee on that list is the Materials Management Planning Committee, which Jared talked about a little bit earlier. This is a new committee that's going to be established per the Michigan Materials Management Plan. And all of these terms, or all of these positions are based on Part 115. So we're required to have a solid waste disposal facility operator, for example, a representative of a hauler of a managed material. It's all pre-specified as to who sits on this committee. So the people who are listed here are all people that Jared has talked to, that he has applications from that fit within these parameters that are outlined for us. There is still a vacancy of a representative of a business that generates a managed material. Jared's currently talking to somebody about that, but they have not committed and he does not have their application yet.
Can you define that business that generates a managed material? What would that be?
You want to answer that, Jared?
That would be any business that generates waste. If you have a trash bin or a dumpster at your business, you are eligible to qualify for that position in the committee.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that generates something that's recyclable?
I think that would be the preference probably for this committee.
That would be the preference. The materials management plan will be covering all solid waste, including items to be landfilled. So in general, any waste production is considered to be valid for the position.
Okay, and you said you have a candidate in that you're speaking with, or you just have?
We currently work with EJ's over in Sunfield. Through our Ag Plastic program, we also take boat wrap and pallet wrap, and so EJ's has been working with us to take their plastic wrap waste and we've shown that it's actually cost them less in dumpster fees to deliver it to us. It's less than dumpster fees. So we are talking with the environmental sustainability person over at EJ's, and because we do work directly with them with our facilities. Otherwise, we haven't heard much from the business community. So if there's any suggestions or ideas, the department is open to taking suggestions.
My first thought when I read that, and I wasn't thinking plastic, I was thinking aluminum. We've got a new manufacturing facility that's not yet opened here that's going to make aluminum cans, and we have Lynn Products that makes extruded aluminum products. But that's not what you were thinking of then.
We can get into contact with them. And yeah, it's any business that wants to have a say on the committee. So it could be good for business to be on the committee.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Blake.
So that one is vacant. The last one, we have 2 applicants, and you're recommending one of them because we only have one position to fill, right?
Correct.
You want to explain why you're recommending Quinn on that one, Jared?
Yeah, I'll explain why I'm recommending Quinn, and then there's a couple other points I want to bring up about the committee. So currently Quinn Underwood, she's the director of the Charlotte Area Recycling Authority. We've had a longstanding relationship with CARA, we abbreviate it, and the city of Charlotte, and they're a really important part of our programs, and they process a lot of materials in the county. And so being in the county, being directly involved with county programs, I think Kara and a representative from Kara would be very valuable to be on the committee. As opposed, Mterra is, as I mentioned earlier in my report, they're a material recovery facility, and they operate over in Lansing, and they process a lot of materials from Eaton County, Ingham County, Clinton County. So a lot of the single source or recycling bins where you put everything in, a lot of that ends up going to Mterra from the Tri-County area, where they then sort the materials to be sold to manufacturers.
So I'm good with your recommendation. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
In terms of our next thing as a slate, the first one, there was 2 positions. Well, let me get the,
The Zoning Board of Appeals.
my plan is just to do a slate for everything
Sure.
with, thank the person on the zoning board of appeals that is interested, but the 2 that are looking for reappointment, that board functions without a problem when they do meet, and having experienced people, we generally like to reappoint people that are already on the board if we don't have an issue. So the slate I would recommend would be those, all the rest of them that are on here, and at the last one would be the recommendation of
For Ms. Underwood.
Ms. Underwood. So
And then with the terms specified for the MMPC, because those have to be staggered in that first year for the 5-year terms.
that would be correct.
So that's your motion?
That's my motion. Do it all at once.
Brian? Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Appointments are made.
I would like to add, we do need a commissioner on we need a county elected official. So outside of the commissioners, we could have the sheriff, the clerk, the prosecutor, or,
So that would be probably appropriate. I know you want to get it going now, but it'd be
Yeah.
appropriate to do it on January 1.
Yes.
Which is that,
Yep.
that works, because that's,
Yeah, I currently have it on the appointment list for
okay.
the Committee on Committees for
Thank you.
January.
Okay. We're on to miscellaneous.
Landfill.
Report.
Oh, no.
Okay.
It's only, how many hundreds of pages?
Buckle up, Blake, we're in for a long talk here. Good morning. Before I talk about the landfill report, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Parks Group that they left here already, but I was at the pumpkin event, the pumpkin chuck, and there was several hundred people from toddlers to grown-ups, and it was exciting to see the engagement from the community and the enthusiasm that the new parks team brings. I'm looking forward to the build out and develop on some of these parks with this crew. I think you guys would all be impressed to watch the energy at some of these meetings that Claudia and I are at. So a little less interesting probably is the landfill report. So as you know, twice annually we do groundwater studies out at the abandoned or reclaimed landfill in Benton Township, I believe it's in Benton Township, just north of Potterville. We did that on September 16th, and essentially we monitor the groundwater and then also PFAS. And it's a similar report as it was in March. Nothing's really changed. Of the 10 monitor wells, one of the wells exceeds the PFAS allowment. So we continue to monitor, and I think they monitored another 10 wells that hasn't shown any PFAS. So I plan to have the scientist who compiles all this data in the spring, once we have a new board, and kind of go over what all this scientific data really means in layman's terms, like he did last year for us. So with that, if there's any questions, that's all I have on the landfill. Yeah.
Morning, Chad.
Morning.
Hey, how many acres is that landfill?
I believe it's roughly, the landfill itself is about 120.
Really?
And then there's surrounding area, I think total that abuts to Fox Park is about 160 acres.
Okay.
Chad and I have actually been working with John Merrick over in GIS to get a map of that area because we currently do not have one. So we're working with them right now to try and get an actual physical map outlining where the landfill is on the property.
Okay, and that entire landfill footprint, that's surrounded by a fence, so there's no public access, is that correct?
That's correct. There's two fences actually that outline the perimeter of the total property, and then an interior fence that outlines the perimeter of what they call the cap, which is the part that has been covered, and that's where, and then we monitor around the perimeter of that cap to the groundwater. It seems to flow, I think it says in the document, it flows east to west. So they monitor all the way around it, but majority of the wells that they monitor are on the west side of the cap. Okay. And to that point, part of our obligation from my grounds team is to make sure we get a lot of vegetation, as you can imagine, the autumn olives and different invasives, the saplings that come up, that penetrates that cap is not good. So my crew was out there just last week, and we do our maintenance on that, keeping that stuff down to a minimal, where a lot of chainsaw work and brush hogging and stuff, just to keep it from getting overtaken with vegetation that the roots didn't penetrate the cap, and then we have other issues, so.
Okay. Well, I was approached by a constituent in Benton Township who has goats, and they wanted to know if they could graze goats up in there to help with whatever weed remediation we have in there, and you mentioned that we want to keep it down. Is that something feasible?
It's something we could certainly look at. I would be hesitant to have my livestock in there just because of.
Because, excuse me, because why?
Well, it's a landfill, right?
Yeah.
And who knows what, I wouldn't want to have my livestock in there, I guess, but that's.
You're scaring me, Chad.
No.
Well, her question was, is that fence, and I don't know where she lives in proximity to that area, but apparently she's familiar with it, but she wondered if that fence was coyote-proof. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea if we could put a herd of goats out there and you'd never have to go in there and mow it again, but.
Yeah, I can look into that. I mean, obviously there's sometimes branches or limbs fall on the fence and we have to do repairs. We've had people cut it open to get in there for access for different things, but we're constantly looking at that. But yeah, that's something that we could, I don't know what type of action that takes, how we allow that, but something we could certainly look at.
All right.
Sounds like a subcontractor department head decision.
I think maybe we should talk to the Grand Ledge City Council. They might have some recommendations.
But in all reality, if it was just another contractor that you're using.
Thank you, Chad.
Yep.
Any other questions, concerns?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Miscellaneous?
There's no miscellaneous.
Limited public comments? None? We have a motion to adjourn? Okay, meeting's adjourned.